Welcome, everybody, to the Growthentic Podcast. This is episode 7 with myself and Shane.
Yeah, welcome everybody. We got a really good one for you this week. It is a little bit more business heavy, but it's got so many great nuggets tucked in there. We start off, it is the season, tax season. So we got a few pieces in there about small businesses and also how it relates to your personal taxes, as well as some of the financial pieces you'll want to put into place for your business when you're getting started. From there, we had a little bit of an aside deep dive into AI, which is becoming a weekly or episode, every episode type of thing. And it's a weekly discussion for us and a daily part of our lives right now. And we also have some awesome stuff around more infrastructure for your business, including 401k, some payroll opportunities and options if you're looking to go S Corp and then you need to start paying yourself and putting yourself on payroll. From there, we also went over into a few personal updates, especially around some healing after some different events and injuries that we've sustained and are recovering from successfully right now. And then you'll want to hang on to the very end because we got some really great stuff. Two nuggets that I love about slowing down to speed up, and also a really great tip from Sam on how to load the cannon for an explosive next day.
Thank you, everybody. And we're back.
And we're back. Yeah. Hey, Sam, how's it going?
It's going well, man. How are you, brother?
Oh, man, it's fantastic. It's Friday. Wish the weather was a little nicer, but can't change the weather. You can only control yourself and your emotions, so we'll just roll with that.
Yes, sir. Kind of crazy. It was so nice and warm. A little bit of a teaser. But I mean, from a selfish perspective, like I can barely go out right now, do anything. Like I can't drive, I can't run. All I can do is walk. So look, let it rain until I can finally get back and hit the pavement. Um, but man, sorry to everybody else that can't do anything outside right now because of the unfortunate weather.
Yeah, not too bad because yeah, like you said, you're not missing out on much here in the Northeast. It's been, yeah, we had a little bit of a taste of early spring, and then that has since gone, and it's rainy and cool. But hey, it's all good, and we just keep rolling with it.
Sometimes I like this type of weather for like, you just get in your zone. You have like a week where you're just grinding, especially for me, like 3.5 weeks in post operation now, like almost there probably to get the green light to start exercising. But this week it was like, I mean, it's crappy outside. I can't do any like physical activities. I just really was in my grind and got so much done. Hopefully you felt similar as far as like just really hunkering down this week. It's kind of like coming out of Q1. I don't know if you have that kind of feeling right now that like, all right, we got through the beginning of the year thinking about, ways that we can make our business more efficient, what can we improve upon, what can we actually look back on and say we've done a good job. That kind of felt like what it was for me this week. A bit of kind of review, but also setting out to what the next quarter has in store and really hunkering down and really grinding this week.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of the same here. It's been a kind of, I feel like the first quarter flew by, and it's really been a reflection on that, especially with tax season here upon us, trying to get the final stuff done. And ironically, our submissions were done pretty early as far as documentation and everything into our CPA, but I don't know if they were batching this year or overwhelmed, but they kind of held on here till the very end. So it's been a little bit more frantic than we typically would have on a normal year, but it's all good. We got the business ones done a month ago, ahead of schedule, so that was fine. And then that rolled right into the personal side, get that all buttoned up here today. And then got a few other little things to take care of next week. And one thing, interesting note that I learned about talking with a mentor who is a successful business owner and is in retirement now, early phase retirement. But we were talking about the kind of strategic hires slash contractors or resources you would want to utilize as a solopreneur, or maybe a 1 to 10 person business, maybe 1 to 5 people at the beginning. And we talked through it, and he was like, yeah, definitely having a local accountant to talk to is very beneficial, just from not only like the write-offs and the structuring and all the tax implications of how to go about doing all that, but then also they become a very good conduit into the banking system, and having referrals and shopping around and knowing the right people to talk to at different banks. Because the next part that I'm starting to think about, or one of the next parts I'm starting to think about as we're going to scale, is how to get access to capital and higher liquidity when trying to cover periods where we have fixed operating costs on probably a weekly basis, like payroll, for instance. But then our contracts might be set up such that we don't get paid for 30, 60, 90 days after the work is complete. And how do you bridge that gap? And so I've had a number of business mentors and folks talk to me about that, and really important to, as soon as you get your EIN, you get your account set up. Maybe you get an initial account. It's not going to be a huge deal for like a checking account, but then you really want to start thinking about forming that relationship with a bank to have some more business oriented accounts being formed. And then as you're going into that next phase for growth, and you're not going to necessarily want to cover all those recurring expenses with your own capital, you then have access to and can build up a line of credit, which is a big piece for growth and bridging that gap. So we had a great discussion around that, and going and kind of talked ourselves into like, yeah, the accountant's probably a really good first step, to have somebody really local who get to know with and form that relationship, because then they have their own network with reputable banks that would service your profile of company and size and everything, and they'll be able to get you in touch with the right people for things like a line of credit. And then additionally, they'll probably also have a good repertoire of lawyers and attorneys out there to help you out with other legal matters and things. So they become really like a go-to hub type person for you to get additional resources. I don't know. It would be interesting to hear your experience, because I know you're outfitted with a few of those already.
I mean, sort of, right? I think it also depends on the type of business you're running. You know, I think there's a lot that resonates with me. I think having that core kind of team of yours, accountant, lawyer, a relationship with a bank, I think is absolutely, important. But for me, I think that relationship with a bank doesn't make as much sense just because my burn rate and the goals that I have as far as payroll is concerned isn't so high. Like that overhead is not scary, at least yet. Maybe there will come a time where I decide to bring on a little bit more help, and that kind of, you know, steady income from invoicing doesn't really cover, the payroll that I currently have in the book. So I could see a case where that could be something that I need. But for me, like what I knew from the beginning, well, not from the beginning, but quickly realized after, was that an accountant was absolutely the first thing that I needed. Not necessarily just from the things that you mentioned for um, like a deductible and tax filing perspective, but really just to get an understanding of how to plan um, like the financials of my life. And what I mean by that is, as a solopreneur, you're kind of dividing up between what the business makes and filing, as an individual. And that has a lot of implications on what you want to just do in life. If you want to buy a home, there's a lot of implications. There's a lot of things that you should be planning ahead for. And I think again, an accountant is so much more well versed than the amount of research that I can do, and has been such a great partner to have over the last couple of years for me. Yeah, so I'd say definitely an accountant for me. Again, my overhead is pretty low right now, so that relationship with a bank didn't make much sense for me quite yet. But I think that still is a very smart move on your part. I mean, your business is quite different, different goals, different stages. So yeah, I think there's a lot that our audience can glean from that if it fits the type of business that he or she wants to run, and there is going to be some cash burn month to month. Absolutely, that sense of security is great, and to build up that relationship early on will make it so much more, so much more possible whenever you do need that line of credit.
Yeah, definitely. They can kind of start to grow with you as you go.
Yeah.
And the other little tax nugget there was so our business is not structured in a way such that we're not S corp status yet. We'll probably be heading that direction this year, but there's a differentiation, and I know you go through it, and a big piece out there that would be helpful to others who maybe are just getting a start is the quarterly estimated tax payments. And I know you've gone through that process. I am just now starting to kind of wrap my head around that as we're generating more revenue and having some profit there. Um, we'll have to begin to start heading down that pathway, especially as we transition out of the LLC realm and over into the S corp realm, probably later this year.
I learned the hard way. Like once I started engaging with an accountant, I realized there were so many other things that I need to think about outside of just finding clients and executing work. Like I knew taxes is like a big part of, having your own business, but as a solopreneur, you don't think much about taxes outside of like, oh, I'm going to owe something at the end of the year. I know I have to file a little bit differently, but quarterly estimated tax payments, like that was something that I didn't realize that, you should be making. I think honestly, a lot of small businesses don't, sub 1 million revenue, probably don't ever do it. Once you start making more, of course, you want to truly make sure that you're abiding all of the IRS guidelines. But yeah, quarterly estimated taxes, I tried to do it myself. When I figured out that that was required, I tried to do it myself. And I found myself spending so much time trying to figure out firstly how much I needed to pay, and to learn the kind of outdated looking website that the IRS has to understand like, all right, this is the form that I need, this is how to fill it out, even using ChatGPT. Like it just took a lot of my mental calories away from things that I knew were much more valuable to me. So that was really the inflection point where I reached out to an accountant to take it all um, into their hands. And yeah, estimated quarterly taxes, that was one big piece. One thing that I learned after working with an accountant as well, and I also file as an S corp, was that as a solo LLC filing as an S corp, you also need to put yourself on payroll. That's something that I didn't know from the onset of starting this whole thing. So it's an honest mistake. I know it's not, that's a big no-no according to the IRS. But that's what a lot of this past couple of weeks have been. After I figured out that it's required, I've been reaching out to, the QuickBooks and the ADPs of the world just to compare their services and ultimately get myself on payroll. It's something that IRS requires of all S corps. But a nice thing for us in most cases, when you do put yourself on payroll and you're, a one person business or maybe with a couple of employees, it has still it has a lot of tax benefits at the end of the year because the amount that you put yourself on payroll comes out of your business's revenue. And that actually allows your business's revenue to be exempt from self-employment tax, which is a much higher tax percentage than payroll taxes. So there's a lot of these like nuances that honestly would have taken me a while to figure out if I were just, doing it out on my own. But with an accountant, I've learned about all of these things. And I'm sure there's going to be more things that I learn as I start sharing even more with him. Like these are my new kind of revenue goals. These are the people that I'm bringing on to help me. And so it's this ever evolving partnership. And so finding a good person, a good accountant, I think goes a very, very long way.
Yeah, oh my gosh, big time. And you touched on it there. Did you draw any conclusions after evaluating QuickBooks and ADP from a like a solopreneur perspective, maybe even into small business size? I've actually dabbled a little bit in researching ADP, only because from a health insurance standpoint, to look at some of these other ways in which you can get health insurance if you don't have, well, I think all the states have a marketplace now where you can get it, but I was evaluating these like professional organizations and things that have a conglomerate of a bunch of small businesses. So it'd be interesting to hear your perspective looking at it from a payroll side.
Yeah, so that was one big piece because in addition to payroll, I have been thinking more about, retirement funds, but also healthcare. Um, what I found, and if we want to do like a comparison between QuickBooks and ADP, um, in addition to being a bookkeeping software and a payroll software, I'm sure a lot of our audience I'm sure our audience knows that ADP is one of the biggest providers of 401ks. So I'd say between QuickBooks and ADP, the kind of the 401k ecosystem that you get with ADP, you know, far surpasses the one from QuickBooks. The one interesting about QuickBooks that I found was that they do have a relationship, so they provide an introduction to Allstate, their healthcare system, and what they provide. Um, and so what I've found ultimately as kind of like the decision, and I'm actually still in the process of making this decision. I think I just saw an email come in from ADP for what they're proposing. What I've found, and I ultimately think I'm gonna go with QuickBooks, is ADP is great. Like they're like the number one
Mhm.
ADP payroll bookkeeping software. Like that's where I think most businesses will kind of defer to, biggest brand name, but it's quite expensive.
Mhm.
In fact, if you go on the website right now, you won't see any pricing information. Everything is done through getting a custom quote. Um, but the reason why they're more expensive, not only because they've been in the market for so long, their customer support is exceptional. They're very, very hands-on. They're very available. I think they're 24/7 if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's what separates them from the rest.
Mhm.
So the reason why I think I'm going to go with QuickBooks, they're a lot cheaper. I think it's great for someone who, is a solo kind of solopreneur, um, is, you know, somewhat limited in terms of in terms of expenses. Like they want to keep their expenses as little as possible, being that they're not scaling to like several million dollars.
Mhm.
Every dollar is very important. Um, and I think it's just really easy to use. I looked at the demo and it just seems like a very intuitive software that I honestly won't have to even interact with that much. It's
Mhm.
really a set it and forget it type of thing where
Awesome.
I'm only putting myself on payroll. So I love that aspect. I love that it's cheaper than ADP. It's like half the cost of ADP.
Mhm.
Um, and it integrates with, if you do get healthcare, in the marketplace, or you get 401ks through, go directly to a Vanguard or a Fidelity, you can
Mhm.
always connect it to your payroll and do all the necessary deducting that you need to. So I think
Nice.
QuickBook gives me everything that I need. ADP would have been nice. It's just slightly expensive, and I just don't think I'm going to utilize it as much as you should at that price point.
Totally. Yeah, I think it that speaks to like where you're at with your business and where you forecast that you're going to be going. And I would say if you're going to kind of rapid scale and you're looking at bringing on some external folks into your company as direct hires, and you want to have that one-stop shop, ADP is certainly definitely, a crown jewel, like you mentioned, a front runner there, and is going to have a lot. they're going to hold your hand and be able to guide you through it because they've done it so many times. Whereas, at the beginning, when you're a little bit smaller and it's, solo or you and one other person, something that's a little bit more DIY where it's offered to you and you have a little bit more control, but it's also a lot cheaper, maybe a little bit less integrations and all the bells and whistles. But like you said, when you're small and every dollar counts, it definitely makes a difference. And the other thing is, as you grow, you can always choose to move over and switch when you get to that point if you need one of the other larger payroll services at some point. Um, and two little tidbits there that I've picked up over time that might be helpful to you and the audience out there is one, a relatively low cost 401k option outside of the big name folks, Vanguard and those types, Fidelity. One alternative is a company called Guideline, and they offer a really low cost option for 401ks that's relatively easy to get set up. So I've used that in the past, and my financial advisor actually evaluated it with me. Because one of the companies I was working at with before was deciding, and he was like, "Well, yeah, the guideline is a decent option there, like very low fee cost, and I think relatively easy to get set up and more catered towards the small to medium business market." So that's one little 401k platform software available out there. And then the other one from a payroll perspective and like an HR platform perspective that I've seen before in the past, used a little bit, and it was relatively straightforward and easy, was called Gusto, Gusto. And another one out there that's maybe a little bit more functionality. It's a standalone, obviously outside of your QuickBooks if you're running your financials in QuickBooks. But uh, when I was a user for both of those platforms, Guideline and Gusto, I liked both of them and had good feedback. And I know that they're on the lower cost end of the spectrum. So,
That's amazing recommendations because that just reminded me that QuickBooks makes an introduction between you and Guideline.
oh,
I think
nice.
they have a bit of a partnership, so I'm not sure if there's any like introductory kind of discounts or some fees that are waived from that introduction, but good to hear that you had good experiences using Guideline.
Hmm. Yep. I mean, gosh, there's so many companies and softwares and things popping up now that it's really hard to keep track, but it is something that uh, as I've been going through and evaluating different softwares and options, one thing to bring it back to a topic that's core to the podcast now is AI and having ChatGPT or Claude or Grok run an analysis on it and give you the, hey, what are the top 3 to 5 options for my given business, my situation, and it'll give you a pretty good response most times. So uh, yeah, I've been utilizing it all daily for lots of different research projects out there. And I know also Perplexity can really comb the internet and give you good references there. So,
You know, it's wild, and just to come at this from like a slightly different angle, just because this has been a hot topic for me the last couple of weeks. The
hmm
fact that you just said that you like, you're recommending, you're just reminding folks to, leverage ChatGPT and all of these chatbot systems that we have available to us to do competitive research between payroll providers or bookkeeping software providers. That's wild just to hear, not only from you, but from a lot of people that I've been having conversations with, because for such a long time, one of the like top tactics that SEOs have used was to put together a landing page that compares
hmm
their software against their top competitors. And those pages would perform super, super well in organic search.
hmm
It would have a lot of benefits from a paid search perspective if they used it in their paid search campaigns.
hmm
And it's just wild now that like, with the advent of the chat GPTs of the world, that tactic and the impact of that tactic is getting a lot more diluted because everyone's doing these searches in different ecosystems now. And that's just been, it's also, I think a lot of SEOs, there's some SEOs out there that are just like, I'm gonna put my hands up. The industry is dead. I'm gonna go find a different like discipline or marketing channel to learn more about. And then you have folks like me who are like at sometimes feeling that existential crisis. And I think there is an existential crisis to a certain degree, but it's also this crazy inflection point of yes, people that historically used Google to get their comparisons between QuickBooks and ADP are now using ChatGPT. But how do we get more visible in those arenas? I think
Yeah.
that's such a fun challenge that this industry is faced up against. But yeah, I just wanted to brain dump that because it's just always so interesting to not just look at data, but speak with people who actually verbalize that, hey, I'm using Perplexity or Claude for this type of information that historically SEOs had like full ownership of. Whereas now it's just, it's so much more, widespread across so many different search ecosystems.
Oh, yeah, you're not kidding. And I think we tend to come back to this pretty frequently, but you said something there that was really rang true and is exciting for a lot of people and scary for a lot of people, and that's around AI and an existential threat. And I think there's lots of different levels there. And you could go really doomsday scenario with the way the robotics are going and everything around that. But I think if you bring it back down to earth a little bit more of like day to day of how somebody might be using it, whether in personal or work life or just kind of day to day, both a combination, I think that it is going to pose an existential threat to those who are resistant to learn more about it and integrate it, because it's ultimately going to become part of everything that you do in your business. And if you are not integrating it, then you're going to lose market share. And eventually you will probably get pushed out of the market if you're not using it every day and it becomes part of your standard workflow and operations, because the people that are using it, what I've seen is it's not really cutting jobs or cutting people. What it's doing is it's allowing a team of one or a team of 10 to perform like a team of 10 or 100. It's a huge force multiplier, and the efficiency and rate at which you can get work done is just so much more expedited and more efficient and effective. And so really the people who are able to kind of upskill, integrate it, and start investing in it are going to outperform their peers. And in your world, that means something completely different because it's a whole new frontier as far as how people interact with data, which, an SEO is really how are the customers, the clients, how are they interacting with the data that they're trying to find? And for me, it's in the services industry where you're again tied to your hours and things like that. It's really about how effective and fast can you get that work done, and can you get more work done per unit time and have that force multiplier. Because then, if you're able to cut down your time, your bids, your costs are going to be lower than your competitors. You're going to get more work, as well as you're going to maybe be doing less of the heavy lifting and more of focused in on that deep work portion where it really does take the human in the loop to perform it. But there's certainly a large amount of work. I think I saw a statistic recently that it was like in my industry, what one of the sector names is AEC, so architectural engineering and construction. There's like 35% of the work and tasks are things that are not engineering related. And I think that that might even be an underestimate. I think it could be as much as 50% of people's time in the industry. If you're an engineer sitting at your desk, yeah, probably upwards of 50%, maybe even more, is spent on things that are not engineering related. And so if you can hone in and start spending 80, 90, 95% of your time doing engineering, the output is going to be that much more impactful, that much more efficient, and it will ultimately reduce costs, gain market share, or you'll be able to go after more work, whatever your variable is that you want to maximize. But it is certainly something that you need to be thinking about and figuring out how you're going to bring that strategy in house. And I'm in the process of trying to navigate that as well because it is overwhelming. There's so much out there. There's so many different people and companies creating technology around it. And what does that mean for a small business, a medium business, a large business? And I'm really trying to synthesize that all down into a playbook for small businesses, especially technical professional service type businesses. And if anybody is interested in that, feel free to reach out to me and come along that journey. And as I gain more of that, I will definitely be posting and actively disseminating that information and any workbooks and materials around that. You can always find me on Instagram at Shane Chalupa. So.
It's interesting, right? Like there's application for your own business. Like I know you're big on AI first, right? In terms of, you know, and I know you do outsource and you have contractors working on projects, but correct me if I'm wrong. Ideally, it would be great if you can find an AI first solution to kind of do a lot of that, a lot of that task. If it is, recurring tasks that can be done through AI. But on the flip side, there's also this element of what kind of agent can I create to package up into some sort of product or service that I can go to market with. So I feel like there's this kind of flow of like you're gaining all this knowledge for not only your business, like your internal business operations, but then there's this other flip side of things where you can take what you've built for yourself and turn it into, a service, a packaged service or a product that can really be beneficial for a lot of companies out there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's something that I don't want to say struggling with, but it's hard to reconcile both because I am very much, both Mary and I are very involved with and passionate about AI and integration into our daily lives, both business and personal side. And so now the wrestling match in my mind is, do we push over towards the AI and creating that framework and making it successful for other businesses like us so we can help everybody else out there navigate this? Or is it looking at it of how do I build it in my company first and then figure out that playbook? And so that's really the path that we're going down is let's build it and prove it out and get the tweaks kind of or the kinks worked out within our own business, document it as we go, and then become a lighthouse and a trainer and a resource for other people who are in similar situations and want to come along and kind of accumulating all of this knowledge and information and then again boiling it down, synthesizing it down to like, okay, how does it is it most effective and efficient to deploy in a company that's a similar structure to what we've got going on? And for me, on what's like this professional services area and arena is similar would be like other accounting firms, lawyers, or not somewhat doctors from a professional standpoint of the services, but they also have their own actual like client interface with lots of different clients instead of they're kind of more B2C instead of B2B. But yeah, like a B2B type arrangement. It definitely there's definitely a playbook to be made there, and so we're in the process of figuring that out right now as we go.
Dang, that's so awesome. I know we just like went down a rabbit hole with AI. I do want to come back to where we were before around, I think we got down this road when you mentioned you can use ChatGPT to compare services like a QuickBooks or an ADP. I just want to ask you a more basic question that might be much more relatable to kind of the general population or the early starters in their own businesses and or careers. What's some of the software that you use that can be both on like the business operation side, like a project management tool, or on the more administrative and finance side, like payroll? Is there any software that you use to kind of lessen the load as far as like manually doing, recurring tasks for your business?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say the our toolkit looks a little bit like this, where when we first started out, you you do your business application, you get your LLC, you get your EIN. What's the next thing? Um, you have your operating agreement in place, which you'll typically just, can be generated from a template in the early stages. Eventually, you'll want to have a lawyer or somebody in the legal realm look at that and evaluate it. But after that, then it was really setting up the banking and getting that piece figured out, getting a credit card, having that figured out in order to for booking all your like things like travel and different expenses that you can utilize the credit card for. And then after that, it was okay, how do we track all of this? So then that would let us right into QuickBooks, which is, one of the top two, I think, kind of accounting and financial management tools out there for businesses of all sizes. And, I don't know exactly when the cutover point is, but there are certainly people that I know that are doing easily nine figures, some or not nine figures, sorry, seven figures, so like a million and up, and even I would say 10 million and up. Probably people still using QuickBooks, right? So it's a tool that you can grow with on the financial management side, and it's critical right now for everything from accounting and bookkeeping and then into taxes and all of that and the tracking there. And outside of that, and kind of like the back end business operations side, we're a Microsoft shop, so we're running everything on Microsoft Office and Business 365, which is just a relic of basically my experience in the professional side. And Microsoft does do a pretty good job. I would say we compared Microsoft and Google pretty extensively. And for a lot of the stuff that we were looking to do, it just made sense with Microsoft. And also the fact that they gave us like 2 terabytes of data storage for free at a similar cost point to Google. So that was just a deciding factor right out of the gate because I knew for me, I was going to generate a lot of files and pretty large amount of data. So we have that, and then I would say a few of the more fun tools that I like to use are the first one, what they call professional services automation software, and that's used for tracking all of our proposals, projects, and invoices, which it can sync up with QuickBooks to real time sync invoices and payments and things. But it's really our work management platform from the services side, and it's called Rudder.io, and it's ruddr.io, and it's just a really, I don't want to say simplistic because sometimes that has a negative term, but it's just a really clean, user friendly interface. And the software does everything you need it to do from a small business perspective, where you're going to have clients, whether you're selling your services in the form of hours or lump or fixed cost or different contract types. And then also you can add in products if you need to sell some products to people, so it has flexibility and it's very user friendly, very quick. Like we were able to get up and running in very little amount of time, and got pretty good customization and customize. Um, you can customize a lot of different parts of it. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I think it will be able to grow with us for quite some time, and it's really the dashboard that shows us outstanding proposals and projected revenue, projected expenses, projected profit for the month. So it's now that we're getting enough data into it after about 3 or 4 months of really having stuff go in there from proposal all the way through project closure, we're gaining a lot more data, and it's getting to be a useful tool and has a dashboard for us to manage our financials in from an operations perspective and not necessarily from like an accounting perspective. Yeah, so I love that software. And then we're also in the process of building what'll be the central hub of our whole more broad work management, which is going to be Monday.com. And I'm in the process of building out the workspace and the boards and everything because it just got to the point where it's like we've got so many proposals, so many tasks to do and we're coordinating between Mary and I that it's nice to have that single. I'm a big fan of a single source of truth. And so having Monday.com be our single source of truth for how we actually do and break down projects and get the work done. And then we can from there link out to everything else. And also thought about it from more of a whole company and all the different divisions that'll eventually be there. So you'll have HR, finance and accounting, operations. We'll have your services folks. Like if you're in engineering, you'll have your engineering teams. And how can we easily handle and manage that? And Monday.com just gave us the best opportunity to customize and tailor fit it while having built-in templates, and they're now integrating AI as well into that platform. So
I love how you guys are using software to kind of alleviate any type of like manual documents that would be required to manage all this stuff. I'm like the complete opposite. Like I don't think about software first. I probably should. Um, but I'm interested. What's kind of the main driver outside of course, like with so many new RFPs and existing projects and so many tasks, um, that might just be the driver for needing something like Monday or a Rudder. But is it that, or like do you have thoughts of like hiring actual like employees later down the line that's wanting you to kind of create this foundation of like I guess just business organization that
yeah.
is warranting a lot of this software?
Yeah, I would say two parts to it. One, having come from a lot of different companies and sizes, from the Fortune 500s and how they manage their work and everything, versus smaller companies and how they manage their work. I just saw, for me, it's once you build it and you get to a certain point and there's going to be so much chaos and disorder in it, it becomes really, really, really hard to go back and get everybody retrained on a platform and then integrate it and build the momentum around that platform to where it becomes a useful tool. And so I saw that. And then the second part of it is, when for me, tracking time against a lot of different projects, and then different customers might have sub projects or sub billing categories and things like that. So the people out there, like especially lawyers and attorneys, will appreciate that because they're going to have probably even more clients than I have in my billing category. But you're going to have different rate structures, you're going to have different projects with subtasks, and sometimes the clients want to see it and the way the work is broken down. And really, just for timekeeping purposes, is where Rudder comes in. The other nice part about that is when you have a project where you have travel expenses and other expenses that could hit on the project, it allows you to track all of that. And then, so tracking is one thing. You have their financials associated with tracking that from a project management standpoint. And then the next piece in the workflow is then how do you get that out to invoice? And what I liked about Rudder is, one, it's free, I think, until you get to a team of more than 3 people. So you get full access to everything until you grow in size, which is awesome. And then I was trying to figure out, how can I go from charging my time and expenses for travel or whatever the case might be? How do I go from that into an invoice that I can then get paid on as fast as possible? And Rudder, I mean, really fit the bill for that, compared to having looked at a lot of these what are called professional service automation softwares that are out there. And yeah, so that's what led us to that. Again, low cost. And then same thing with Monday.com. You can have a free version up to 2 people on your team. And what I've seen from a lot of the successful 7-figure business and up, 7, 8, 9-figure businesses, is it's really about creating the systems. And I think this hits on what you were saying, is like, why were we going into this out of the gate? And like Mary has the same questions, right? Because it's like, well, can't we just like do it and use like, yeah, Microsoft Word and an Excel spreadsheet to track this and do, and yes, you can definitely do that. And you can go there's a lot of companies out there who have built businesses on Microsoft Excel. You can definitely do that. But the way that work is going, and the visibility and access to the data that underlies all that is going to be critical for efficiency going forward. And so I kind of just am like, well, if we build it out now, put the systems in place, and we have a single source of truth for certain specific things that we have to do, and then we network out from there. A lot like people might be familiar with like a Notion site, and there's other ways to approach this kind of topic. But if you can synthesize it down into one central source and then manage out of that, it just becomes so much easier as you scale and as things grow. So that's the driver. Low cost. It does fill a need for us, and then wanting to scale and knowing we're going to scale. How do we pull all that together? And it's like, to me, my one of my big things in my head is like, you build it right the first time, build the foundation right, and then it will create and it will be a payback over time. So I think about that often. But I'm also in the dichotomy of fail fast with like the Elon Musks of the world, where you don't really want perfection to impede progress, right? So it's getting out there, getting something that works, or trialing a couple different things and then just making decisions as fast as you can, while also trying to build it at the quality that you want so you don't have to come back and keep investing a ton of time into it.
Absolute progress over perfection. That's kind of how I feel. And before going into kind of my experiences with that as well, if I was able to listen to everything that you just said in the last 15 minutes before I started my business, that would give me so much kind of sense of calm and peace as far as like all the way from the beginnings of like getting your EIN, opening a bank account, getting a credit card, then doing this and doing that, and like thinking about all of the different cogs within running your own business. Yes, those are the things that you might not think about, and a lot of people don't think about at the beginning, because the first thing that they think about is, what am I selling? And let me start selling, which is also good too. That
Oh,
should
yeah.
be worked on in tandem with all of the infrastructure related things. But the way that you just kind of outline that almost in a checklist form. Man, if anyone's out there listening and needs some sort of checklist like that, and of course, this checklist will always be changing with more software available to do things even faster. Um, Definitely reach out. Shane, I know, is more than happy to share things like that. I can also share, some of my experiences as far as how I got from day one to now, a little over 2 years. And experience is one of the greatest teachers. I am also big on progress over perfection. And when I first started out, it was a lot of kind of like using Google Sheets to track a lot of things. And look, that can take you very, very far. Like I've worked with SaaS companies that are making like their recurring revenue is insane. It's, 10, 20, $50 million. And they're running their reports on macros in a Google spreadsheet and it works.
Yep.
So it's not to say that it's impossible, but for just to share what I've been going through, even just a little bit of like bringing on a subcontractor to help out with work now, there's a lot of infrastructure things that I've had to change.
Hmm.
Little things like creating an alias to get the right access to some of the client data that I need to get work done, all the way to project management. Now that it's not just about me, there has to be, some level of tracking all of these activities. It's not
Yep.
directly tied to a revenue number for me. There's not a lot of travel. There's no products that we need to purchase. But your needs change over time, whether that's starting from day one or if you're in day 500, there's always going to be needs to kind of perfect what you've already created as far as infrastructure is concerned. But just don't try to perfect it. What I'm trying to say is don't try to perfect it from day one. Definitely move with some speed, but also take a step back at times and make sure that you're setting up a really rock solid sound foundation, at least for the foreseeable future. You can always make changes down the line to make it an even better process for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how you said that, because that's one of the beauties of our relationship in the podcast is the two different perspectives. Because for me as an engineer building systems, my mind always has always gone to like, how can I build it better? How can we make it more efficient, optimize it, streamline communication? every team, no matter what you're doing, unless you're a single solopreneur, like making a widget and you don't have to talk to anybody to do that, then okay, then it's pretty basic and you could benefit from a lot of this, but it's not going to be as impactful. Whereas as soon as you start getting one other party involved, the complexity and it's all tied to communication. And
Right.
so a lot of it is around how do you get the data out in front of people in a visual format so that way it's fun and interactive and also serves a purpose for you to be able to visually track what you're doing. And one of the things from my coaching program this week that I love is you really have to be able to inspect what you expect. So, whether that's your business, your employees, whatever the case might be, you have to be able to go to it and drill down and you have to be looking at it to say what is the data, what are the statistics around what's going on with this piece and how is it performing? Is it healthy? Is it sick right now? Am I just kind of neutral in it and get the health and the pulse on what you're doing because if you are thinking about like, oh, how is the marketing and sales team doing? Well, you need to have some type of inspection on that to where what metrics are you going to use and what are you going to evaluate? And as you go to scale and grow and you're going to be bringing people onto your company based on the fact that you can sell whatever it is you're offering, you really are going to be very interested and you're going to rely a lot on your sales KPIs and your marketing KPIs. And that's really critical. And so for all pieces of your business, which can really be, again, love to boil it down to the three: marketing, sales, and delivery. So those three pieces of what you have to keep growing to scale the company, you have to be able to say, yes, this marketing is healthy, lead gen is healthy. Um, my sales is healthy, my pipeline is healthy, my win rate is this, my how much revenue we're closing on average per month, is that growing, is it stagnant, and where if there's something that's an issue, how can we drill down? And so being able to one kind of dashboard and see that is important so that you can keep a pulse on it. And then also in the delivery portion, it's like how successful are we doing it as efficiently as we can, and that all to me in my experience, ties into project management and communication. Is everybody on the same page, seeing the same things? Are they visible to what they need to do, and are they working on it at the right time? And so, as I've picked up on that on every company that I've ever worked at, I just said, you know what, I want to do it different. I want to build it right from the beginning, have those systems and infrastructure in place. And it's definitely not perfect, but you can at least try a little bit and move fast and try putting that infrastructure in, tweak it, and then go. Because as you get bigger, the chaos and disorder only increases. So it's gonna be more challenging and more of a heavier lift to put that in and implement it down the road. So it's kind of like planting that seed early on helps um, grow a nice foundation for your tree trunk.
Nice, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, and maybe to switch gears a little bit out of the more hardcore business stuff. How is the eye recovery going? How are you doing? It sounds like you're getting close to getting back to being able to work out, which is that'll be a huge milestone. And of course, driving, another thing that's probably underappreciated by those out there who aren't affected daily, but by the ability to drive.
I'm getting there, man. My gut is telling me like things are better. Like visually, things are still a little blurry. It's still quite heavy. Like the best way I could describe it is that it just feels really heavy. I can't really focus. But look, I mean, it's definitely getting better day by day. I have my 1 month check-in next week. So we'll see. I'll take a deep look and make sure that everything's on the up and up, and hopefully I come back with some good news around being able to exercise and do kind of like the normal things. So all good around there. Yeah, I mean, everything is good, man. Everyone around me, as far as I know, healthy aside from my grandmother. By the way, she's 101 years old. I think she's turning 102 in like 4 weeks. Yeah, like
Wow.
right around Mother's Day, she's turning 102. But her
Incredible.
health, yeah, her health hasn't been so great. Like she's been falling a little bit more just because she's so frail at her age.
Hmm.
So my mom actually just flew out to see her. So aside from that, I mean, everyone around me's healthy. My wife just, got a bunch of tests as we're thinking about like trying for a kid um, this year. We're starting to like, get our checkups and whatnot, and everything looks great. So look, if everyone around me is healthy, um, we're kicking, breathing, there's nothing to really worry about. My faith is growing, so life is good personally, nothing to complain about. And look, I think the last couple of weeks, as I'm recovering, it has been this feeling of like, let me slow things down a bit, like literally slow down because I can't like exercise or run or go out and drive or whatnot. So I've been really enjoying having so much more time in the day to my business or to just relax, to read. So I'm really just trying to cherish this moment in time where I have a lot of time, which is hard to come by, because I know in about a week or two, things are going to speed up again, right? With in so many ways. Like I'm going to start reintroducing a lot of just exercise and things that, take up time in the day, which is great though. It's time that I would willingly give up. But also with now having a subcontractor on board, now going out and looking for more deals, it's inevitably going to get super, super busy. Like this Q2 will be, I think, one for the books. So really appreciating the last couple of weeks, especially this week, to really have a lot of time, take a breath, slow down before speeding up.
Yeah, I love that. And it fits with a lot of the ethos and different books out there of slowing down to speed up. And there's so many situations where that applies, like not only to personal life, if you have a health condition or something like that, that's kind of set you back. Also, if you have kids out there, business also, just sometimes even what we were talking about earlier with infrastructure, sometimes taking that minute to just slow down, catch your breath, really assess, step out a little bit from the normal perspective and get a more maybe macro view, that it really helps set that perspective and show and highlight the things that are most important and valuable in life and just towards your overall mental health and well-being and happiness. So I love that saying about slowing down to speed up, and I think it holds true in so many ways. And I'm also glad to hear that the recovery is continuing to go well, and wish you the best during the next checkup. And it's funny because your recovery and mine are similar only in the sense that I have been in an aircast boot, like a walking boot, for we're going to go on 2 weeks next Tuesday. And I'm in a 3 week protocol right now. And I kind of feel the same way that you do, where it's like with my Achilles, I had it booted up for a week and I kind of take it off just to walk around a little bit and put some weight on it to make sure that it's still holding some of the strength and getting a little bit of movement and things to not atrophy. But then notice like, oh man, it's still feeling it. Like it's still talking to me. It's still there. And I can only probably somewhat relate on your like a much smaller level compared to you is like, oh man, it's still there. And I'm just like, oh man, after a week, it should be like fully healed. Like, come on now, and back to 100%. And so after going into almost finishing week 2, I finally realized like, oh wait, okay, it's gonna take longer than I would like it to. But I'm starting to see those little pieces of progress where it's like, okay, feeling it less, and so hopefully your journey will be similar to where it's like, okay, it's less, and then before you know it, like one day, not you'll look back on it. You won't realize it when it happens, but when you look back, you're like, oh, okay, I feel better now, and like whatever the ailment is like healed at that point. And so yeah, it's always a journey through the healing process for sure.
Oh man, dude, I didn't know you were in a cast like that or an air cast. But it sounds like it's an active recovery, like you can actually still walk on it with the air cast on, like you can do some sort of like exercise.
Yeah, my workouts have been totally different the last couple of weeks. So I going through it and having some people look at it and getting some treatments on the Achilles, it was like, okay, this has become a little bit more of an issue than I had originally thought. And I could tell the way that it felt, weird, like feeling weird, like I've never felt before. So it's like, okay, I need to slow it down. So put it in the boot, doing some research and just like a protocol to recover. And the fortunate part is that having it in the boot, able to do things while in the boot, and that includes going to the gym and working a lot more on the upper body and still being able to do like, fortunately at my gym we have a ski erg, so I'm able to do upper body cardio based workouts and have just completely flipped my workout routine, which was heavy, obviously, on running for a while there. Cut that out and have switched gears a little bit, and it's been kind of nice to get a break from my traditional workout scheme and the different things that I have been doing. But yeah, I'm able to at least like it was never really in that much pain. It's bizarre. Never in like excruciating pain. It was more so just after like heavy use and activity, it would definitely be more painful and could definitely tell there was something wrong there. So now just giving it the time, and I'm able to take like a slow walk on it this week. Finally at the tail end of this week, like a neutral walk on it and without the boot around a flat surface, and it feels pretty good. So we'll just be able to kind of keep going and testing from that perspective. But we're heading in the right direction. It's just, yeah, slower than would always hope or like.
Dang. Well, look, I'm glad that you could still get some movement in. Look, a big check-in next week, so I'm praying for the best, man. Hopefully,
Yeah,
we both get some
likewise.
good
We're
news
all
next week.
all with you. Yeah, frame for that, and thoughts for sure with you. And yeah, the universe will deliver for you. I'm trying to think. Yeah, so that, I mean, that's a lot of the updates on my side. Ton of great stuff that we went through, and I would say, yeah, but as tying it back to the systems and infrastructure, I would say as things have gotten busier and more things going on, it just highlights how important having systems in place or creating them is. And it's weird because the more stringent and strict and focused you are on those systems, the more freedom you end up getting from that. Like the discipline really creates the freedom because you have those clear time and space for yourself and to invest in whatever it is you want to invest in versus living in the chaos. It's very hard to pull yourself out of that and then feel like you're going to have dedicated time to move and advance your goals and objectives towards your vision. So yeah, sometimes it feels like overly restrictive, but really there's a ton of freedom that comes from having those kind of more strict systems that would traditionally you would think more of like something that would be part of the military or things. There's a reason why all that's there, and it just makes you that much more efficient and effective, and brings a lot more peace into your world and order, as opposed to chaos and disorder.
Absolutely. I mean, that's motivating for me to hear. Just kind of keep pressing forward, find what works for you, progress over perfection. And if I want to add one thing on top of that, we already have so much going on as it is. It's hard to even find time to build another system and another process to make things more efficient. Protect your time. Like as for me, my most productive time is the early morning, whether that's from 6 to 8 or 7 to 10. Don't book any meetings. If you know you need that time, cherish that time, protect that time, and make sure you're utilizing that time for that new system or that change in infrastructure that you need so that you're running much more smoothly, much more efficiently. Um, and one little quick tip, this is probably something that a lot of people do, but just one slight nuance in the way that I plan my day that has unlocked a lot of kind of productivity for me was leaving the day with planning my top 3 tasks for the next day. That way, the moment I sit down at 6, at 7, or at 8 a.m., whatever time I start the day, I don't have to think about what my priorities for the day was. I left the day before. Um, I pre-planned my priorities for the day before. So I think those two things in the last couple of weeks have really given me, a controlled time to be productive and already pre-selecting what those activities are. So I'm really maximizing the few hours in the morning to really press my business forward.
Yeah, I love that. Kind of like loading up the cannon the night before. And so that way in the morning you're ready to go and launch. And I have noticed that as well and need to make that a little bit more of a habit. But I have a way of tracking in a system in a notes, a OneNote platform notebook that I have, but I definitely need to improve upon actually organizing that for the next morning. So that way, when I sit down, right now, I typically sit down and do the organizing, but I have trialed that where you do it the night before, the day before, and it unlocks a lot more capacity right out of the gate. So definitely got to prime it and get it ready, and then you're locked and loaded for the morning, or whenever your most productive time is. You can just hop right in the seat and get cooking, and it makes a big difference. So yeah, I love that
100%.
one.
Yeah. Guys, make sure to follow Shannon. He drops a good nuggets on his Instagram stories from time to time, so make sure you give him a follow. And if not, if you haven't already, please give us a follow as well at the Growthentic Podcast.
Yeah, likewise for Sam and all things SEO related, and this new wave of AI SEO.
Crazy times.
Love it.
All
All
right,
right.
man. Thanks for the time. Appreciate everything you do, man.
Likewise. Talk to you soon.
Bye.